Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode. My microphone's gonna fall. Welcome to this week's episode of Pretty Lonesome. I'm so happy to be here right now. Oh, do I have stuff for you this week? Okay, so listen, backstory. This Sunday, okay? If you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen this unravel in Lifetime because I've been fucking losing my mind and I'm going to tell you why. But this Sunday, I locked myself in my bedroom alone with my music, which, by the way, I have the best playlist ever right now on Spotify. If you want to follow it, if you want to listen to it with me, I've been losing my fucking mind. Anyway, I locked myself in my room and I took my ADHD meds, which usually I don't do on a Sunday. And I proceeded to read 2 books back to fucking front. Then I wrote like 50 pages in my journal. And then I did some research and thinking on this week's podcast episode, which is all in here. And so the reason that I decided to lock myself in my room like that was because I've been going insane. I've been going insane the last few weeks. And I think the reason is so I have a friend visiting from London right now, and obviously like we're in LA. So I want to show them around and like show them a good time. The thing about LA is there is a party every night if you want to. Like there is something every night of the fucking week. And usually I don't go because I don't like drinking that much. I don't honestly like the feeling of being drunk that much. And I hate being hungover. Like I get hungover if I even smell alcohol. And even if I go out sober and my friends are all drinking and we stay out a bit late and it's like that energy, I feel hungover the next day. Like I just feel rotten inside. And so I don't typically drink very much. I love being tipsy. I do. But I don't like being drunk. And even though sometimes it's fun, like sometimes it just hits, typically I don't fucking like it, so I don't do it. But lately, because my friend has been here and we've been like going out a lot, I'm like, okay, I need to drink. And so I've been drunk a lot. And that has led me to do some things that are wildly out of character for me. I will give you an example. If you watched the podcast episode that I did with Tara Yummy, she told a story where she was like, yeah, we went out to this bar and we had a couple drinks and then we met up with some of her friends who were men, went to a diner to get like fucking breakfast basically, like at the end of the night. And she was like, yeah, you were being like so scary. Like I was like bullying her friends. And the thing is, and she was trying to defend me. She was like, you were just hungry and drunk. I wasn't. I mean, I was both those things, but I would have done that anyway because something about me, once there is a sip of alcohol in my system and I see a man, I don't know what it is. I just rip into them. And like, I obviously like discernment. Okay, I don't rip into men that are gonna actually fuck me up for that. Like it's all in like good humor and I'm never saying anything too crazy. It's just like, I don't know, it's something about it and it's not flirting. Like it and they know it. Like it really isn't. Like I am their fucking enemy, but not enough that they're gonna like leave because I don't want to actually fuck up everyone's night. It just comes out of me. And I'm not even a confrontational person, so I don't know what the fuck it is. But I have been doing a lot of that lately and it's getting worse. And then I hung out with someone that I had a bit of a crush on, okay? Like last week or however long ago, I don't know. And we hung out. It was the first time that we had hung out and we had a few drinks. And it went from me asking them about themselves at the start, you know, it was going really well, to me telling them about themselves. First time I've ever met this person, I'm like, okay, so I reckon there's some things you could work on. And like, I really like them. Then, anyway, by the end of the night, I told them about themselves. I had loudly sung along to J.I., the Prince of NY, okay? Company Part 2, no less. I think those are the 2 worst ones. Yeah. So anyway, and I woke up the next morning a little bit hungover and I was like, interesting. I lay in my bed and I laughed out loud because I could not, emphasis here, I could not have put a worse foot forward. Like if I tried. Like they were sat directly across from probably their worst nightmare. And I couldn't do anything the next morning except genuinely laugh. I was like, usually if I'm embarrassed about something, the reason I think about that thing that I did so much is to try and almost talk myself out of it being that embarrassing. Like I'm like, okay, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe everyone was drunk and no one will care. This was one of those things where none of that is going to work. Because not only was it as bad as I was remembering, it was actively much worse than I was remembering. But it was one of those things where I was just like, yeah, you know what? There is literally no repairing this in my own brain. I did what I did. I am who I am. And I'm just going to have to live with it. And so I laughed. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. It's actually really funny that they're out there with that impression of me forever. It'll be fine. I'll survive. And I'll probably do it again. So anyways, all that to say, I then proceeded to do the only responsible thing that you can do in that situation, which is take a vow of sobriety. I was like, I'm never drinking again. And I told everyone in my life, I was like, guys, that was my last drink last night, because I actually can't fucking do this anymore. Like, this bitch is gonna ruin my life. And that's why we call her Adeline. Like, I am not the same person. So I was like, oh, no more alcohol for me or her. And I've since been to like 3 parties sober. It's actually really fun. I've been drinking Red Bulls and just like, I'm at the function on a sugar rush. So fun. And it's been great. I've been the designated driver. We've saved money on Ubers. No one's got like horrible car nausea after a night out. It's actually been really fun. Anyway, that's not the point of this episode. I just wanted to give you some backstory into like why I was sat in my room for 10 fucking hours reading and journaling on my Sunday. So, closing statement, I put myself in timeout. I put myself, actually not even in timeout, I put myself in like the naughty step, the thinking corner. Like, I had to not only take a timeout and recollect myself, or just not collect myself point blank, but I actually had to reflect on what I had done. And who I was and why I was making the choices I was making, why I was saying the things I was saying. And I was like, you know what? First step, sobriety. Second step, 10 hours of journaling. Like, you're going to pay the price of what you did. And anyway, it was really productive. So, also, how cute is the orange? Yes. So anyway, recently, someone brought to my attention the existence of this thing called DBT. Now, if you've ever been to therapy in your life, you'll probably know what CBT is. Cognitive behavioral therapy. I feel like everyone kind of knows what this is off TikTok. I went to CBT as a teenager, and it was fucking shit. Like, it was so fucking shit. And I don't know if it was because I was at CAMS. If you know about CAMS, you know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. It was awful. And I had the worst therapist in the world. He wore these fucking ugly socks, and they were so fucking... And he wouldn't wear fucking shoes. Like, he wouldn't... It was so weird. He would just wear these socks, and they were so ugly. And he'd wear these big, heavy material jeans, and he would cuff them, and the cuff, he wouldn't cuff them like a little bit, as was the style in like, I don't know, 2018. He would cuff like this much, so he'd just like fold it over once, and it was like this big cuff, and I was like, you're so fucking ugly. I mean, not you, but your jeans. He was actually quite an attractive older guy, but it's not the point. Also, why the fuck did I have a male therapist at 14? I don't want to tell you anything. Anyway, not the point. Point being, okay, I went to CBT and I thought it was shit. It didn't help me. It was like, okay, yeah, I understand. Like, I'm not stupid. I understand that, like, I have a scary thought and it makes my heart race, and then it fight or flight, and then here's what I can do to, like, not be in fight or flight. Like, okay, yes, but that's not fixing anything. That's just, like, bare minimum management, it felt like to me. And listen, maybe CBT is... I don't want to put you off it, because I'm sure there's much better therapists and much better forms of CBT, and maybe I just like got the wrong end of the stick because I was also 14 and definitely not listening to what they were saying. They would just let me play with the sandpit the entire time because I wouldn't speak. But anyways, someone was telling me what DBT is, and it's dialectal behavioral therapy, whereas CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. And the reason it was interesting to me is it's not just helpful in learning to change a behavior, because it focuses on changing emotional responses, learning how to change your emotional responses, learning how to change your thought processes and the things that make you miserable. But it also is focused on helping a patient accept the reality of their lives. And what's interesting, and I'm going to get to the substance of the episode in one sec, but it's cool because it was developed by this woman who actually had borderline personality disorder, and she spent a lot of her youth in mental hospitals, and she tried to kill herself like a billion times. And then she was like, right, well, the therapy in here is fucking shit. She was like, I'm in hell, and when I get out, I'm gonna figure something out, and I'm gonna come back, get everyone else out of hell too. And she, if you want to read up on her name is, I forgot, I'm gonna put it in over on text, but it's very interesting. I was reading up on it because I was like, wait, it's so interesting. And one of the things that stuck out to me, which is going to be the substance of this episode, is validation strategies to address emotional dysregulation were a big focus of DBT, are a big focus of DBT. And this is what I wrote. Sometimes I write things better than I can say them, so let me just read from the diary. So I think this is important because believing nothing is that deep can lead to dysregulation because you never stop to realize or acknowledge how much something hurt. Like, if you guys remember that episode where I gave advice and this one girl wrote in and she was like, my ex cheated on me and I stayed with him and then he broke up with me and now I still want him back and I don't know what to do. And I was like, I suggested that it's possible that rather than actually wanting him back, this whole thinking of the good times with him and remembering him as someone that he ultimately was not, and a better version of himself than she knows he is, and a version of himself that didn't cause her pain or cheat or lie or betray, is a self-preservation tactic more than anything, more than really missing him or him being special. And the reason I said this was because I think that one of the most painful things in life is hating yourself. And when you realize that you betrayed your trust, that you let yourself be hurt or let yourself knowingly be with someone who doesn't care about you and who will betray you, and you know that even though it's not your fault, you let yourself stay after the fact, right? And that is not something to be ashamed of, but it's painful when you realize that you did that. And so many of us have been there. Most women, I would say, have been there at some point in their lives, not necessarily cheating, but in whatever way you've stayed in a situation where you know you're not valued. And it's painful when you look back and you realize you did that. Because when you break up with someone, your heart is broken. The last relationship that you need shattered in your life is your one with yourself. And what I was saying to the girl who wrote in about her cheating ex-boyfriend, I was like, you ultimately, at the end of the relationship, broke your heart just as much as he did. In order to not view yourself as a perpetrator to one of the most significant pains maybe in your life of betrayal, it is much easier instead to remember him as someone he wasn't, to validate the version of yourself that did stay, so that you don't have to go through a fracturing of your relationship with yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just means you're trying to survive, but you deserve more than that. So let's realize the things that we're doing in survival mode and get out of them, right? I think when something happens in your life and you don't validate that experience to yourself, and now we're walking away from the realm of the cheating boyfriend, I'm talking anything, whether it is family relationships that don't make you feel good, whether it's a friend that's treating you badly, whether it's a horrible relationship, whether it's abuse, whether it's just chronic stress, whether it's a bad work, like whatever it is or was caused you pain and that caused you stress. When you go through life without truly validating your emotions, for any reason, whether it's you're busy, you're tired, you don't want to hold the weight of it, you don't think it's that deep, you don't really feel the impact of this thing that everyone tells you is distressing and is sad, and you're emotionally detached and you just feel fucking fine. I think when you go through life not validating yourself, you will fail to see how full your plate is, because everyone has a plate, or as my therapist used to call it, a glass. And she would use this glass analogy with me to discuss my panic attacks. And she would say, your glass is full, and so one tiny drop causes a spill, and that spill is a panic attack. And so even though it feels like there is no rhyme or reason to why you have these panic attacks, because they happen randomly and at minor things, and you're cruising one day and yes, you're stressed, but you don't have panic attack, and the next day you do have panic attack, and none of it makes sense. She was like, it's because you are constantly teetering on the fucking edge. Like, you literally can't seem to reduce the amount of things that are chronically terrifying you, stressing you out, and so everything can just push you over, and that's why you're having 3 panic attacks a day. At that point in my life, I would have hyperventilating, shaking panic attacks a day, like 3, 4, 5, maybe more. And they would keep me up at night, and I was like, there's no fucking reason. And she'd be like, yes, there is. You have no capacity for anything else because you have never reduced this cup. So let's reduce it. And rather than just learning about what causes a panic attack and what it is and blah, 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 we went back to the start of my life. And she was like, what happened? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And I've lived a very happy life. Like, I really haven't had any obvious major hardship. And that was always the hardest thing for me, because I was like, I don't have the fucking right to be stressed. I don't have the fucking right to be mentally ill. Like, I've grown up in a good family. I have a great mom. Like, nothing evil happened to me. I must be so weak for being this way, because there are people who have it 10 times harder and they don't have half the shit that I have wrong with them. And it took a long time for me to realize that I was born sensitive. And that was a hard thing for me to admit to myself when I finally realized it, because I was like, am I really just sensitive? And then I realized nothing is truly embarrassing or not embarrassing. And the only point of life is learning to live it well and learning to be happy. And if my truth is that I was born extremely sensitive, the only good that comes from ignoring that is my pride. I can also choose to accept it and realize that whilst nothing majorly, outwardly, obviously traumatic had happened to me as a kid, there are things that did happen to me as a kid that, due to the way that I am wired, stressed me out so deeply and chronically, and that I couldn't understand. And it had the same impact on me as something massive. And it felt massive. And so it's like learning to understand everything that is filling up your plate or your glass, or however you want to put it. And I'm saying plate in the realm of more just like general life, because like when I say cup, I'm talking about like panic attacks, like your cup spills and you freak the fuck out. But say you have a plate and everything is on it. It's work, it's friends, it's school, it's your personal doubts about yourself, your trials, your tribulations, your deadlines, everything is on there. And I think as life progresses, naturally things should be on and off the plate, like peas, okay? Your car payment, it's stressing you out 1 month. Next month, you figured it out. You got a raise, or you're realizing like, hey, this car payment's not actually that bad. I can pay it. My job is fine. Whatever it is, you resolve the argument with your friend. You have a better relationship with your parent. I also think that a lot of people don't have the tools to validate themselves. Because I think if you weren't validated, if you've never been validated, if no one's ever looked at you and been like, hey, that must have been hard. How did it make you feel? And I'm not talking to a therapist, I'm talking a friend or a parent. If you've never had that experience, especially not one at least consistently in your life, of course you wouldn't know how. And it's much harder, I think, to sit in your room alone and decide one day to fucking validate yourself. It's really hard. For me, it took T coming into my life and saying, hey, you're in a bad place. And she genuinely pulled me out of a trench that I was in that was... So it's something I've never really spoken about online, and I don't wish to, and I'm not going to. But just to give you an idea, I was in a situation at the time that I genuinely believed would be my life forever. And I couldn't see a way to change it. But it took someone else coming into my life with a very strong presence and saying to me, who I've always thought I'm rather self-aware, but it took her coming in and saying, something is very wrong, and I don't know if you notice that it's very wrong. And I would be like, no, I do notice. I know it's wrong. I know that I'm in a bad place. And she was like, I don't think you know how bad this place is. Sometimes it takes someone else because they can have more empathy for you than you can have for you. And I remember there was a time in my life where I would refuse. I just couldn't protect myself from something. And I didn't know why I wouldn't protect myself from it, because I would look at baby pictures of myself and try and convince myself, protect her. Like, you're killing her. She is scared. Please protect her. And in the worst moments and in the darkest moments, I would try and remember those pictures, and I'd be like, think of her. This is who you are. You are not someone who deserves to be where you are. You need to help her. And I would try and view myself as this innocent 6-year-old. And I know Kendall Jenner even is like, yeah, I keep a picture of my baby self. I think it's on her mirror or something. And I was like trying so hard to do that. And I couldn't not do it, in terms of I couldn't connect with the feeling that I deserved to be happy or any of those things, or to have empathy for my situation. And it took until the day that I was in the same situation that I was always in, but I had an animal with me, and I could see how much it was affecting this animal, because animals obviously know the energy in a room, they know what's going on. And I remember looking at her and being like, okay, I can't do this anymore if it's gonna impact you. And it made me sad at the time, because I was like, why do I have no empathy for myself and I do for an animal? Like, and I remember thinking, like, that's not good. But sometimes it takes someone else, is my point, to see you and love you more than you are able to love yourself, to validate things that do need validating. Because like I said, back to my point, if you can't see your plate is full, if you can't validate yourself, if you can't empathize with yourself, you are never gonna recognize that you have chronic stress. Or you might recognize it, but without knowing why or how to fix it, it's pointless to just see it, right? And that was always how I felt about CBT. I was like, yeah, I know, but like, you're not helping me get rid of it. Anyway, the thing is, I can truly empathize with just not kind of giving a shit and being like, yeah, I'm detached, I'm numb. Yes, these things are bad for me. Yes, they're stressing me out, but I'm not going to deal with it right now. I genuinely understand. However, I think for me, something I didn't realize was a factor in all of this and was a consequence to this, because I always just thought that the consequences of not loving myself or caring for myself were just that I would be miserable. But I think there's a bigger consequence, which is that you will end up reactive, and that will affect everything in your life, specifically the people that you love. And it's all well and good to fucking hate yourself and not believe that you deserve better and just be like, oh, fuck it, I'm not going to help myself, I'm not going to go to therapy, I'm not worthy of therapy, my problems aren't that bad. But I think most people have an easier time when they realize, but it's not just you that's going to be in pain because of this. You are entitled to sometimes flip your shit, okay? It's fine. But in a more holistic view, if you think about it, if you refuse to validate yourself and you refuse to empathize with your experiences and insist on the fact that you are maybe weak or silly or any of the things that we say to ourselves, when you then meet someone who wants to confide in you and wants to stand by you in life, whether it's a friend, a partner, or whatever, and inevitably a bump comes up in the road and something happens to them and they're sad and they feel away, or they open up to you about something that's happened to them previously in their life, you now are being asked to have a capacity for empathy. And I think that the very challenging thing with this is, number one, you can only meet someone as far as you have met yourself. You can have a major, massive capacity for other people to bring things to you about themselves. Now imagine the opposite. You are in denial about many of your life experiences and the impact they had on you. You can't find the self-love and the empathy and the validation within yourself or within anyone else to experience the feelings attached to those experiences. And now someone that you love and care about in this hypothetical has come to you and said, this thing happened to me and it hurt me and I'm so upset. And you have had way worse things happen to you, let's say, like way worse, quote unquote, because everything is subjective, but let's say you had something significantly worse happen to you in your life and you never let yourself feel sad about it and you have been shoving it down, okay, and it's been rotting on your plate for 5 years. How are you now going to tell your friend that they are right in their feelings? I think what happens a lot in these scenarios, and I had an example with one of my friends recently, okay? And I loved this example because we both debriefed, like a week later, we were like, do you think that this was what happened when we had this conversation? And we agreed, this is exactly what happened. So let me give you an example. I was talking to one of my friends and I brought to them an experience that I had had a week prior. And I was like, okay, so I was with this guy and he did something and I think it was weird, but I also don't think that he meant it in a weird way. I just think, unfortunately, it's one of those things where I feel weird about it after the fact and I'm like, oh, well, I'm not going to hold him accountable. It's just like, I think I'm uncomfortable. I think he made me feel unsafe. And we were walking around a grocery store having this conversation, okay? And we were laughing. And she was like, I knew he was the type of guy to pull some shit like that. And I was like, yeah. And then we were just kind of having a jokey conversation about it. And at one point she turned to me and she went, I don't think he meant to do it. I think you're right. But I do think you're allowed to feel uncomfortable. Like, I mean, of course you're allowed to feel uncomfortable. I think that that you really should feel uncomfortable. But I guess you're right. It's just one of those things. And I was like, yeah, I agree. And the reason that I think I agreed is because I wanted to avoid addressing the truth of what had happened. Because now I look back and I absolutely hold him accountable for what happened. So anyway, she was like, yeah, I think that you are right that you feel uncomfortable. That was weird. But you're right, I just don't think I don't think he's evil, you know? And I was like, yeah, I agree. And she came to me, the same friend came to me a few days later. And she sat me down and she was like, Mads, I've been thinking about the conversation we had the other day and you told me what that guy did. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, I'm really sorry because I invalidated you. Like, not intentionally, but like, there was a reason inside of me why I didn't tell you that you should actually be angry and not just uncomfortable. And I didn't validate it and I hate that I brushed it off so quickly. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, I was thinking about it and I actually had an experience like that once in my life. And I have never addressed it with myself. I've never felt any emotion towards that experience, but I just didn't think it mattered. She was like, I've never sat and felt that thing that happened to me. It's just kind of like a thing that happened to me. And she was like, when you told me what he did, I knew subconsciously if I was going to validate you and tell you that you have every right to be angry and deep dive it with you and like get all riled up over what happened and tell you that you should feel, you know, hurt and angry and that all these like really help you open up that emotion, I would have had to have felt the same thing because I had the same experience and I've never validated it for myself. And I was, I think, too scared in the moment to open up that can of worms in my brain. And I was like, oh, whoa. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And then we spoke about our respective experiences and we got past it. And I ended up messaging the guy and I was like, hey, fuck you. I'm just kidding. I didn't. I did end up messaging the guy though. To this day, I don't know what he's on. I don't know what his intentions were. I don't know why he did what he did. Maybe he's just a fucking idiot or maybe he's malicious. I don't know, but I feel much better about it because I let myself feel gross for like a week. I was like, ugh. And I processed it and I spoke about it and I had empathy for it. And now I'm like, it happened and I feel okay about it, you know? And I think my friend having the self-awareness to reflect upon her response to me, because she is someone who never really just like lets a conversation go. Like if I ever tell her about an experience I had, we're going to get to the very bottom of how I feel. And she was like, it was just weird to me that I didn't ask you more questions at the time. Like I would normally ask you exactly how you feel and why you feel that way. And do you think that maybe you actually feel this way and that way? And have you seen it from this perspective? Like normally we really get into things. And she was like, and I didn't do it with you. And that's why I was thinking about the conversation. And that's how I came to the conclusion. I was protecting myself essentially. And it takes a lot to be that kind of person. And if she was someone who wasn't ready or didn't know how to empathize with herself and reflect and validate her experiences, she would never have come to me with that conversation. And probably to this day, I would still think nothing that bad happened. And I would probably still feel really uncomfortable about what happened. And there's also just so much truth in what she said of like, you brought me a wound of your own that was identical to mine, and I couldn't look at it. Like, you told me you're in pain, that means I should be in pain, and I've never been brave enough to feel this pain, so I need you to not be in any pain. Don't worry, it wasn't that bad what happened to you. And I think that people run into this situation a lot, where I think especially in parent and kid relationships, a kid will tell their parent, like, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, and the parent will be like, I had it 10 times worse than you as a kid, and I'm fine. And I think the truth of what is happening in that interaction, more often than not, is the parent is saying, I am so not ready to feel like a victim or like I wasn't loved or that I am not strong. And I don't want to recognize that I went through a lot. And so when you're telling me you're going through something similar, I can't validate that for you because I never did it for myself. And how can I tell you you're right and continue to tell myself that I was wrong about the way I felt at the time? And I think a lot of the time in life, we want to believe, for whatever reason, that we are stronger than we are, because it's unsettling to feel like a lot of small things can have a genuinely big impact on us. Because like life is genuinely full to the brim of small or big stresses that just are out of our control. And it's an intimidating thing to realize that those things actually have an impact on us, no matter how much we want to believe that we have a thick skin, that we're resilient people, that we're strong, and all of those things are true, but there is so much more strength in sitting with a feeling and accepting it and realizing it for what it is. It doesn't make you weak. It builds strength, it builds resilience, it creates space on your plate for empathy, for compassion. And I think the biggest thing that we don't have in today's world is fucking compassion. Like, you just don't. Like, if you can't see the way that either your actions or the actions of others will make a loved one for you, or anyone in the world, but let's just say a friend, feel, you are going to, whether you want to or not, dismiss the way that friend feels. And it is going to build resentment. It is scary to start this process. But again, I think when you think of it in terms of not the impact it's going to have on yourself, because that is the hardest place to start. I think the cause of a lot of people not being able to validate or empathize with themselves is a fundamental lack of self-love. It took a lot for me to begin even daring to believe that I was wrong in all of my shame and my guilt that had just existed in me my whole life. And I think given that I think the fear of being weak or the hatred of weakness that is bred into a lot of people, and the need for superiority and the illusion of control, because I think that's also a huge thing, is people want to believe that they are in control. If they don't choose to be weak, if they don't choose to be hurt or sad, then they won't be. And if you don't make bad choices, your life will go well. Like, that is an illusion of choice. And sure, you can have a level of control over these things, but you need to have an illusion of choice, I think, as a human being to feel secure and safe. You need to believe that your house that you go to sleep in is still going to be standing when you wake up, but you don't know that it will be. Ultimately, if you want to dwell on that truth, okay, it's completely out of your control. It could be struck by lightning, it could be bulldozed down in the middle of the night, plane could crash into it. You don't know these things, but you just go to bed believing that it will be there when you wake up every morning, right? And if you spent way too much time dwelling on the fact that that's not even that much within your control, you would have a panic attack. And so it's scary to start to acknowledge the fact that just because you choose to be strong and to view the world a certain way and to have whatever perspective you have, and that your life experiences built you up and didn't make you weak or didn't make you in need of validation and empathy. Do you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say it's an illusion. And it makes sense that people think in this way, because of course they do. A good place to start, I think, can be loving someone else in a way that you can't love yourself. And I'm not saying go get into a relationship and fall in love and then be better for them. Never do that. I'm saying imagine a scenario where your friend comes to you and they say, I'm hurting, something happened, and you discredit them, even in a small way. If you don't have the capacity to hold the truth for your own pain and emotions, you will never, genuinely ever, have the capacity to hold space for other people. Maybe you can fake it once or twice, but to have the real conversations with your friend, like my friend had with me when I told her this guy did something weird. To have a genuine, deep, intellectual conversation, an emotional conversation about the way a thing made your friend feel, to help your friend, to be there for your friend in the way that they deserve because you love them. It takes introspection on your part toward your own life, and that maybe can be the motivator, because even if you don't care about yourself enough or think that your problems are good enough to fix, maybe you will see that your friends are before you'll see your own, because sometimes that's what it takes. I don't know. Or maybe you'll see your family, whoever it is, your brother, whatever, sister. All these things are like this. They are deeply intertwined. You can't be one without the other. You can't be a good lover without loving yourself. You can't be a good friend without being a good friend to yourself. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, that's my point. So I think that these skills aren't just valuable for people who are struggling intensely emotionally enough to the point where they are put into DBT therapy. I think that it's extremely important for every human being, especially those who strive for closeness. And anyway, I've spent almost the entire episode talking about validation because I am very passionate about it. Like, I never realized how important it was until very recently. And I've been so much of a happier person since I learned what it is to love other people. Does that make sense? Because I thought I was loving people before, and I did love them, but I couldn't give them love the way they deserved it. And ever since I've started to give myself the space and time and love and care that I have been needing and deserving, and whatever, I have had so much more capacity to love other people. I've never in my life felt passionate about strangers before, and lately there's a couple people that I know in my peripheral vision. This is why I like to call them, because you're an acquaintance, but also I know you, I see you, I know you exist, you're always in my peripheral vision. Does that make sense? Since I've made these changes in my life, which have been gradual over the last, I'd say, 2 or 3 years of my life, it's been however long I've been alive. That's how long I've been doing this shit for, I guess, with language that can express what I'm trying to do. I've been doing it, I'd say, for 2 years. Everything that I spoke about in this video. And it's opened me up more than I could have ever imagined to being excited about other people, even people I don't know. And what I mean by this is, I'm going to give you an example. There is this one person who I know of, and like we've met a few times, but we're not friends, and like I really don't know this person at all. But there are a few things I know about them that I see in a past version of myself. I don't dislike that version of myself, even though she was someone I would never want to be again. I just feel love and empathy for her. I feel sad that she was in the position she was in. I feel grateful to her for eventually changing that position that she was in. And I feel comforting towards her. Like, I want to comfort her. Like, I don't feel resentful towards her for doing what she did to me and being who she was and making the decision she made at all. I genuinely just feel like love and warmth. And because I escaped that version of myself, I see the way out of being that version of myself. And so when I see this one person, I'm thinking of one person, and I see these traits in her that were in me, and maybe I'm projecting, I don't even know her, but like, I'm pretty sure I'm right, okay? Just humor me. I see them in her, and I'm like, I look at her now, and like, again, I don't know her, so maybe this is weird, and I don't know why. Like, I get people who become like my Roman Empire for like a year at a time, and then I move on, so forgive me, she's like my internal project right now. But I see her every now and then, and I look at her, and I'm like, I just love you. Like, I don't know you, maybe you don't even fucking like me, maybe we wouldn't get on, maybe you won't change, and maybe you will live a version of life that was unfulfilling to me and sad for me, and maybe it feels good for you. We're different people. You're not me. I would never tell you that you're wrong. I would never try and change you or fix you without your fucking consent. I'm just looking at you and I'm seeing something. And I'm not doing anything about it because I don't know you, and that would be fucking weird. But I'm looking at you and I'm seeing something, and it makes me feel soft towards you because I'm like, that was me once. And rather than seeing her be someone I used to be, or seeing her adjacent to someone I used to be, and feeling, oh, I don't like her because I used to be like that and I'm not like that anymore. Rather than feeling any level of dislike towards her, instead what's replaced, because that's how I would have used to have felt, is, oh, I don't want to be around this person because I don't like people like that. That's why I changed myself, right? Because I fucking hate myself. So now I'm not like that, and now I hate her. That's how I used to be. Whereas now I'm looking at her and I'm like, oh, I like you. Because I wasn't shameful or deserving of now feeling guilt or shame or embarrassment from who I was then. I feel warmth towards her. So now I feel warmth towards you because I see that you're in my old shoes a little bit, just this much. Because you're a different person with a different life and a different reason, different context, different feelings, different heart, different head. But something's the same, and it makes me want to take her in. Not that she needs taking it in, she's fucking fine. I can't assume that just because we're in the same position that we're having the same experience, because that's not how life works, and that's how projection works. Rather than feeling distaste, which is exactly how I would have used to have felt, I only feel the possibility of empathy. And again, I don't know her. I don't know her situation. I don't know how she feels. So I can't feel empathy because I don't know how she feels to empathize toward it. But I feel the possibility of it, because if she were to ever be who I think she is, or who she could be, because I'm insane and I make up things about people in my head, then I would want to wrap her up in a hug and be like, okay, come. And the change in my attitude from wanting distance from things that I perceived as my own faults and my own bad experiences and my own phases of my life where I was someone I no longer want to be, having that feeling of like, stay the fuck away from me, because I didn't love myself for who I was then, and I didn't feel any empathy towards myself. I just saw myself as stupid, as weaker than I was now at that whatever point in time, and I wouldn't empathize with her. I would think, well, I changed things, good for me, I'm better than you, and I hate that version of myself. I'm embarrassed of you, I'm shameful of you. And now, by practicing validation and empathy and so on, okay, and radical acceptance for myself, I now just view the world genuinely with rose-colored glasses on. I'm like, everyone is so lovely everyone is lovely and everything is good. Genuinely. Like, I feel love where I used to feel indifference. I feel, and I think about things. I think about people. I used to not think about people. Not in that way, but not in the way that, like, I wouldn't consider people, but it was like, I would never have seen the girl that I'm thinking about and have thought about the experience that she's having and cared. Like, I just wouldn't have ever gone there. I might have been like, oh, maybe we've got some shit in common. Haha. Like, okay. You know? But now, it's like, I think when you get yourself out of pain and you see someone else in pain, you just want to, like, you're like, come here. Do you know you don't have to feel that way? Like, you just genuinely want to, like, you want to walk around with a boombox all day and piss everyone off. It's like when you're drunk and you think your music sounds good to everyone, but it's J.I., the Prince of NY, and no one else knows the fucking words, and you're on a date and you're screaming the lyrics in their face and they're scared and they're not having fun. It's that kind of feeling. But, like, I still believe that you're having fun and you like J.I., the Prince of NY now, and you like Company Part 2. And you're going to learn the words with me, whether you like it or not. But my increased capacity for empathy for others, because of my increased practice of empathy for myself, has changed my life. It is only one of the 4 teachings of DBT therapy. I'm really not talking about fucking DBT anymore. I'm just talking about myself. But they have 4 key concepts, okay? Mindfulness, emotional regularity, distress tolerance, and interpersonal effectiveness, which I don't know what one of those validation comes under. I think probably it's a factor of emotional regulation, because, like I said, otherwise you're going to be reactive if you don't ever acknowledge the stresses in your life beyond your rent and your car payment, bitch. You know, another thing I realized recently, kind of off the topic, but not really. This is just like I don't want to do a whole podcast episode on the thing that I'm about to say, but I want to get it out there because it's worth it, I think. I was recently having a conversation with my friend T, and I was telling her about something that had hurt me regarding an ex, like a breakup from like a long time ago. And I was like, yeah, and it really hurt me because of, and then I cited something from my past. This one experience I cite all the time when I talk about things that hurt me now. And I'm like, yeah, it triggered this specifically. And my friend pulled me up on it, and she was like, you know, not everything that hurts you now has to be triggered from something from before. Like, you're always talking about how, and I believe you, this person really hurt you. But when you tell me, oh yeah, this thing happened last week and I think it really hurt me because it reminded me of this thing that happened when I was 19 or 6 or 5 or whatever it is. She was like, do you know that things are just allowed to hurt because they hurt? Like, they don't have to trigger a fucking wound. You don't have to find where the source of the pain came from every time. Sometimes you do. And other times it just hurts. And I was like, wait, why didn't I think of that? And I realized what I was doing by constantly trying to pin my pain on a wound that was pre-established within me was to almost invalidate the experience as a whole. Because whilst I believed, okay, example. Okay, something happened to me when I was 19 and it hurt. And I validate and I empathize and I understand that pain. And I'm not ashamed of it. And it works with me and I grew from it, etc. And I accept what happened to me and I'm not angry, whatever. And then today, something happens and I get hurt and I think, oh, the reason this hurt is because it reminded me of this wound that I have so much empathy for and blah, blah, blah. And it sounds right. I've acknowledged the wound. I see maybe where a source of pain comes from. But take a step back with me. I think the reason I was doing that so often is actually because to even say, oh, this hurts because I am wounded from something else, is minimizing the isolated event that happened at the present time. Like, this happened today, and okay, maybe sometimes it's right to relate it back to something that hurt 5 years ago. What if this thing didn't hurt you because you've already got trauma there and they reminded you of something? What if it is completely valid by itself? And I've realized that's what I was doing, is I was getting mixed up in thinking that because I was giving myself emotional grace for feeling really hurt by something, by saying, well, it relates to this much bigger pain that I have, and, you know, whatever, and I see where my emotions come from, and I think I'm being mature. And that is a great way to think when it's warranted. But I hadn't realized that there were going to be times where that was actually doing more harm than good? Why do you not think that you in your current state is allowed to just be upset, angry, hurt, sad, or whatever it may be, or whatever it may be that you feel, you know, or it could be a positive emotion, whatever it is, why don't you think that that was enough to cause that emotion by itself? And again, sometimes it will be that, and sometimes it will be that they poked a wound. And I think a lot of the way that you can tell is just by knowing yourself well enough. Like, sometimes it just will be that, and sometimes it won't be that. And I can't tell you which one it's going to be. But anyway, I thought that was valuable because this literally happened to me a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh my God, the work continues. Oh God. Anyway, my camera's about to die, and I have to drive my friends to the airport because they're leaving me today. I'm going to be by myself. Okay, well, I'm going to cut this episode off right here. I love you guys so much. I have to go drive my friends to the airport right now. I'm so sad. I'm genuinely going to sob my fucking eyes out once they leave. Okay, I love you guys. Sorry if this was a crazy fucking heavy episode. I don't even know if I hit my talking points. I wanted to more discuss DBT and like all this different stuff. And like I wanted to do some exercises from the workbook and stuff. But I'm not going to do that because I've just spent nearly an hour and a half yapping. I love you. I hope you have a good day. Mwah. Or a good night. Whatever it may be. That was like a wet kiss. Mwah. Sorry. Okay. Love you. Okay. Bye-bye.